This is part one of a multi-part series on the Ark of the Covenant. Settle in and close your eyes if you like. Let the quiet hum of my voice wash over you, lulling you into a state of peaceful awareness. Imagine for a moment the golden glow of candlelight flickering across ancient walls, casting dancing shadows that twist and turn like vines around you. In this sacred space, where light and darkness intertwine, we're about to embark on a journey through time and faith to explore one of history's most enigmatic artifacts, the Ark of the Covenant. I invite you to make yourself comfortable, whether you're nestled in bed or curled up on a couch with a loved one. Allow the weight of the world to melt away as we delve into the mysteries that surround this legendary relic. The Ark of the Covenant, the very name evokes a sense of awe and wonder, transporting us to biblical times when divine power seemed to walk among mortals. Our narrative begins in the heart of ancient Israel, where the Israelites, God's chosen people, were journeying through the unforgiving desert on their path to the Promised Land. Guided by Moses, their leader, they faced not just the harsh terrain, but also formidable foes, each challenge testing their faith in God. But amidst these trials, there emerged a beacon of hope, a symbol of God's presence, that would come to be known as the Ark of the Covenant. In the Old Testament, Exodus chapters 25 through 31, we find the first mention of this extraordinary artifact. God, in his divine wisdom, instructs Moses on its creation, laying out precise specifications that were to be followed down to the last detail. It was to be a chest made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, adorned with 2 golden cherubim, figures of immense religious significance, symbolizing the divine essence. These cherubim, with outstretched wings, were more than just decorative elements. They represented the very Spirit of God, serving as a conduit between the earthly realm and the heavens. But what was the purpose of this magnificent chest? It wasn't merely a vessel, it was a sanctuary. Within it, Moses placed 2 stone tablets bearing the 10 Commandments, the foundation of the covenant between God and humanity. This sacred bond, established on Mount Sinai, was a testament to God's love and his expectations for his people. The Ark of the Covenant became the tangible representation of this covenant, a constant reminder of God's presence, guidance, and unwavering love. Imagine for a moment the scene in the wilderness. The Israelites gathered around the Ark, their faces turned upward towards the majestic cherubim, their hearts filled with reverence and gratitude. The Ark wasn't just a symbol, it was a source of strength in times of adversity, a beacon of hope in the face of despair. Its presence with them gave them courage to press forward. Throughout their arduous journey, the Ark accompanied the Israelites, enduring the same hardships and triumphs alongside them. When they reached the banks of the River Jordan, the waters parted at the mere touch of the Ark, allowing them safe passage. It was almost as if the natural world itself bowed before its divine presence. Fast forward from the tumultuous journey through the wilderness to the moment when the Israelites finally settled in Canaan, the Promised Land. Here, in the land of milk and honey, the Ark played a pivotal role in shaping their destiny. It found its place in the Holy of Holies, the most sacred chamber of the Tabernacle and later the first temple in Jerusalem. Surrounded by thick, heavy curtains, it was veiled from the sight of ordinary men. Only the high priest, the holiest of the priests, was deemed worthy to approach it once a year on the Day of Atonement. The Ark's presence imbued this chamber with an otherworldly aura, transforming it into a space where the physical and the spiritual intertwined in an almost imperceptible dance. To those who witnessed it, the Ark wasn't just an object. It was a living, breathing manifestation of the divine. Its presence was felt in the very air, creating an atmosphere of such profound sanctity that even the bravest of hearts would beat with reverence. Now, let's shift our focus to the stories that have echoed through the ages. Tales of individuals who were irresistibly drawn to the Ark of the Covenant, each story offering a unique perspective on the Ark's allure and power. Our first tale takes us back to the time of King Solomon. As the new temple stood majestically in Jerusalem, Solomon, in all his wisdom and power, decided to bring the Ark from its temporary resting place in Gibeon to its rightful home in the temple. This procession wasn't just a ceremonial event. It was a celebration of faith, a grand spectacle that united the people in their devotion to God. Imagine the streets of Jerusalem alive with activity. People from all corners of the kingdom had gathered. The Ark, carried by priests in ornate garments, moved through the crowds, its presence heralded by trumpets and the sound of rejoicing. When the ark arrived at the temple, it was placed in the Holy of Holies, marking the completion of a sacred journey. In the biblical narrative, we see the deep reverence with which the ark was treated. Even Solomon, in his immense glory, did not presume to enter the Holy of Holies. He recognized that in the presence of the divine, even a king must humble himself. This story highlights not just the ark's importance in their religious practices, but also the humility and respect it inspired even in the most powerful of hearts. From the days of King Solomon, the ark remained in the temple, silently bearing witness to the ebb and flow of Israel's history. It saw the rise and fall of kings, the triumphs and defeats, the moments of unity and disunity. Through it all, the ark stood firm, a symbol of enduring faith. It was during the reign of King Manasseh that the true depth of the ark's power was put to the test. Manasseh, at a young age, had strayed from the path of righteousness, leading him to engage in practices that were an affront to the religious sensibilities of the time. The people of Judah, deeply troubled by the king's actions, turned to the ark for solace. They sought divine intervention, hoping to guide their king back to the right path. Imagine the scene in the temple. The people gathered around the ark, their voices rising in unison as they pleaded for mercy and guidance. The temple, usually a place of tranquility and worship, echoed with the raw emotion of their pleas. The ark, silent yet powerful, seemed to absorb their anguish, offering a space for their faith to take root amidst the turmoil. While the outcome of this particular episode is not explicitly stated in the scriptures, the very act of seeking the ark's intercession speaks volumes about the faith and devotion of the people. For them, the ark wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a living source of hope and strength in the face of adversity. As the centuries passed, the ark continued to captivate the hearts and minds of those who sought its presence. From the days of King David, who composed psalms in its honor, to the prophets who foretold its significance, the ark was more than just a historical artifact. It was a symbol of the enduring human search for the divine. Let us now turn our attention to another intriguing account, the story of the prophet Elijah. Elijah, known for his unwavering faith and fiery passion, once embarked on a journey to Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai, the place where Moses had received the Ten Commandments. Elisha's journey wasn't just a physical one. It was a spiritual odyssey marked by challenges that tested his faith in profound ways. At Horeb, he encountered a powerful wind that shattered the rocks around him. But it was an experience that left him shaken, not enlightened. He then heard a severe earthquake, yet it didn't bring him any closer to divine understanding. Finally, after the earthquake, there was stillness. And in that silence, Elijah heard a gentle voice that asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" This moment of quiet communion was a revelation for Elijah. It showed him that God's presence was not in the grandeur of the wind or earthquake, but in the serenity of stillness. Elijah's journey mirrors our own spiritual journeys. It reminds us that sometimes in our quest for the divine, we might miss the subtle whispers of guidance amidst the chaos of life. The Ark of the Covenant, with its enduring symbolism, invites us to cultivate a similar sensitivity to the nuances of faith. Just as Elisha learned to listen for the still, small voice, we too can learn to tune out the noise of the world and tune into the deeper truths that resonate within our souls. As we continue our exploration of the Ark of the Covenant, keep in mind that each tale adds a layer to the rich tapestry of its legacy, whether it is the awe inspired by its physical presence or the faith it ignited in the hearts of believers. The Ark remains a compelling testament to the depths of human spirituality. Before we part ways for now, I invite you to consider the universal truths that these stories impart. What does the Ark symbolize in your own journey of faith or personal reflection? How does its legacy resonate with your experiences and beliefs? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below or in a journal. Your reflections might offer a different perspective that enriches the conversation for others. And if you've found this exploration of the Ark of the Covenant intriguing, I encourage you to stay tuned for the next installment in this series. Until then, carry the spirit of wonder and curiosity with you, allowing it to guide your journey of discovery. And remember, sometimes the greatest discoveries are not found in what we see, but in what we choose to believe. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "You shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and a cubit and a half high. Overlay it with gold inside and outside, and make a gold mercy seat. And I will put on the mercy seat cherubim of gold, 2.5 cubits, each one facing the other, that they may guard the ark of the covenant. And I will say to the cherubim, spread your wings and be lifted up. Then take the poles, lift the ark and carry it. So let us pick up where we left off in part 1. Let us talk about the construction of the Ark of the Covenant. You might be wondering, why did God choose acacia wood for the ark? What was so special about this type of wood? Well, acacia wood, also known as shittim wood, was highly valued in ancient times for its durability and beautiful appearance. It was often used to make furniture and other religious objects because of its strength and resistance to insects and decay. Acacia trees grow naturally in Egypt, Israel, and many other parts of the world. They have been used for building ships, houses, furniture, and other purposes for thousands of years. In fact, the pharaohs of Egypt used acacia wood to build some of their most important treasures, including the coffins of some pharaohs. The wood is strong and durable, but it is also beautiful and aromatic. The scent of acacia wood is sweet and pleasant, which made it popular for use in religious ceremonies. This is likely why God chose acacia wood for the Ark of the Covenant, as it was a strong and durable material that would stand the test of time. Its beautiful appearance and pleasant aroma also made it suitable for use in religious ceremonies. But we know from Exodus chapter 25, verse 10, that the Ark of the Covenant was not just to be made of acacia wood, it was also to be overlaid with gold. Gold was chosen for its beauty and value. It is a precious metal that has been prized by humans for thousands of years. It is also associated with holiness and divinity in many cultures, making it a fitting material for use in religious objects. Additionally, gold is a durable material that can withstand the passage of time, ensuring that the ark would remain beautiful and majestic for generations to come. The combination of acacia wood and gold created a beautiful and majestic object that was worthy of being a symbol of God's presence. Then God told Moses to make a mercy seat. Now, if you're thinking, what's a mercy seat? Don't worry, you're not alone. I had to look that up too. But basically, the mercy seat was a golden platform that sat atop the Ark of the Covenant. It was a place where the high priest could go to atone for his own sins and the sins of the people. So when we think of the mercy seat, we think of forgiveness and God's mercy. The mercy seat was also decorated with 2 golden cherubim, which were symbolic representations of God's presence. When the high priest approached the mercy seat, he would offer incense and blood as a sacrifice for the sins of the people. He would also pray for the people and ask God for forgiveness. The mercy seat was a reminder of God as covenant with the people of Israel and a symbol of his willingness to forgive them when they turned away from him. Overall, the mercy seat was an important part of the Ark of the Covenant and played a significant role in the worship and religious practices of the Israelites. Now, back to the cherubim. These were placed on either side of the mercy seat, and they had their wings spread out as if they were flying. They were made of solid gold and were about 5 cubits tall, with each cubit being about 18 inches. They were designed to be very detailed and lifelike, with human-like faces, wings, hands, and feet. Despite having these human-like features, the cherubim were not considered to be actual humans or angels. Instead, they were seen as divine beings that were created specifically for the Ark of the Covenant. Their purpose was to guard the Ark and protect it from harm. They were also believed to represent God's presence and to act as a link between the physical world and the spiritual realm. The cherubim were an important part of the Ark of the Covenant, and they played a significant role in the worship and religious practices of the Israelites. Next, we know that the ark had rings and poles that allowed the Levites to carry it. These rings were attached to the sides of the ark, and the poles were inserted through them to allow for easy transportation. The ark could then be carried on the shoulders of the Levites whenever it was necessary to move it. This allowed the ark to be moved around easily and safely without damaging it. The poles were also useful for setting up the ark in its designated place in the tabernacle. When the ark was placed in the tabernacle, the poles were removed and set up nearby, so that they could be used to move the ark again when necessary. Speaking of the tabernacle, let's talk about how the ark was actually set up in the tabernacle. The ark was placed in the Holy of Holies, which was the innermost room of the tabernacle. It was set up in such a way that the front of the ark, the mercy seat with the cherubim, faced the entrance to the Holy of Holies. This meant that when the high priest entered the Holy of Holies to perform his duties, He would first see the mercy seat and the cherubim, which symbolized God's presence and power. The ark was carefully placed on the ground in the Holy of Holies, and the poles were removed and stored nearby. The exact placement of the ark in the tabernacle is not specified in the Bible, but it is believed to have been in the center of the room. The ark was covered with a veil when it was not in use, and only the high priest was allowed to enter the Holy of Holies and see the ark. Let's also talk about the priests who cared for the ark. The Ark of the Covenant was a sacred object that required constant care and attention. It was the responsibility of the Levites, who were a group of priests, to care for the ark and ensure that it was kept clean and in good condition. They would also transport the ark whenever it was necessary to move it. In addition to the Levites, there were other priests who had specific duties related to the ark. For example, the high priest was responsible for making sure that the ark was set up properly in the tabernacle, and that it was covered when it was not in use. He also performed various rituals and ceremonies involving the ark, such as the Day of Atonement, when he would enter the Holy of Holies to make atonement for his own sins and the sins of the people. The priests played a vital role in maintaining the sanctity of the Ark of the Covenant and ensuring that it remained a symbol of God's presence and power among the people of Israel. So there you have it. A brief overview of the construction of the Ark of the Covenant according to the book of Exodus. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about the Ark of the Covenant, then be sure to check out my channel. We discuss all things related to the Ark and other topics that are interesting and entertaining. Be sure to leave any thoughts or comments you have down below. Maybe even share it with someone else who might enjoy it as well. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring the world around you. And from there, the children of Israel journeyed to the wilderness. And so it is that we find ourselves today, journeying alongside the children of Israel, picking up our story where we left off last time. The Ark of the Covenant, borne aloft upon the shoulders of the Levites, has arrived at the banks of the Jordan River. Before them lies the Promised Land. Before them lies Jericho. Yet before them still are 40 years of wandering to be endured. And so it is that the children of Israel camp at Gilgal, where they prepare to cross the river and begin their trek through the wilderness. Yet crossing the Jordan into the Promised Land is not accomplished without first paying respects to the waters that have been a life source for the children of Israel throughout their entire exodus thus far. And so it is that the people gather around the ark and the priests sound the trumpets, while the Levites step forward and take up their positions to carry the ark across the river. Then, according to the instructions given by God, the 7 tribe leaders who represent the 7 tribes east of the Jordan are tasked with carrying the ark across the river. Yet as soon as the feet of the priests carrying the ark touch the water of the Jordan, the river stops flowing and stands still. This display of power and majesty brings great wonder and awe to everyone present. For this is the first direct demonstration of divine power that they've seen since the plagues against Egypt. With the river stopped, the ark carried across, and the riverbed exposed, the people are able to cross over on foot, and the 7 tribe leaders with the ark are able to set the ark down upon dry land. In a final display of divine power, the priests dip the ark's poles in the water, whereupon the river immediately begins to flow once more. The people cheer, celebrating their safe passage into the Promised Land, while the priests and the Levites rejoice that the ark has been carried safely and securely. For now, the people are able to settle in and establish their camp at a place called Shittim. Here, the people remain for 38 years until the next generation is ready to enter the Promised Land. But alas, during this time, a plague comes and kills 24,000 people, which prompts Moses to pray for mercy. And God says, "It is because Israel has sinned that my wrath is burned hot against them. But I will heal Israel." Phinehas, son of Eleazar, grandson of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my wrath from Israel in his zeal, for he was filled with my spirit and made atonement for Israel. In other words, the anger of God was so great that only the zealous act of one man, Phinehas, was able to turn it back. Yet, now the time has come for the children of Israel to cross the Jordan and enter Canaan, and so the ark is taken up once more to lead the way. Once the ark has crossed the Jordan, the people follow after, eating the bread of affliction and drinking the water of affliction for 40 years. At times, God provides for his people through a special provision called manna and quail. Yet even still, the people complain constantly and rebel against God. Nevertheless, God keeps his word and brings them to the borders of Canaan, where they face off against the kings of Canaan at the Battle of Megiddo, and victory is achieved. Thus, the ark is carried into the city of Megiddo, and remains there for 7 years. But soon it is taken up again to lead the Israelites in their battles against the Canaanites. Once again, the ark plays a key role in battle as the men of Israel draw near to the city of Jericho and prepare to attack. According to God's instructions, the ark is carried in front of the men of Israel, circling the city silently. And as they circle, the people play the trumpets. On the 7th day, they circled the city 7 times. And on the 7th time around, they shout mightily, giving praise and honor to God Almighty. And just as they shouted, the wall collapsed and the people were able to loot the city and burn it. Yet despite all the warnings, and despite what happened at Jericho, Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Shimon, took some of the accursed things and hid them in his house. When the Israelites transgressed the divine instructions and took plunder from the accursed city, God became angry and sent 2 of Israel's spies to find out what had happened. They found Achan and uncovered his sin, whereupon Joshua summoned him and questioned him. And when Achan confessed his sin, Joshua commanded that he, his sons and his daughters, his house and all his possessions should be burned. And so it was done, and Israel was spared from further judgment. Yet it is not long after this that the men of Israel go to fight against the city of Ai, which was close to Bethaven. And they lose the battle. The men of Israel are beaten back to the city, defeated and discouraged. Joshua tore his clothes and fell on his face before the Lord and asked God for an explanation. God told Joshua that the loss was due to the sin of Israel, but also told him not to be afraid, for he would deliver the city into the hands of Israel. So it was that under the leadership of Joshua, and with the Ark of the Covenant leading the way, Israel returned to the plain of Moreh, where they camped opposite the city of Ai. Again, the ark was carried in front of the people, and the priests went ahead of the people, blowing the trumpets. Then Joshua gave the order to attack, and when the trumpet blast was sounded, the men of Israel attacked, put the men of Ai to flight, pursued them until they reached the city gate, then attacked the city and captured it. Though victory is achieved, a dark cloud hangs over the outcome. For the first time, the Ark of the Covenant is captured by a foreign nation. What does this mean? Is this the end of the Ark's story? Or is there something more sinister happening here? As the men of Israel flee from battle, they are pursued by the men of the Philistines, who beat them and overtake them. Then the men of Israel gather themselves together and retreat into Bethaven, taking the ark with them. There, the men of the Philistines lay siege to the city, attacking it for 3 months. Finally, the men of Israel inside the city grow weak and thirsty and ask for water from the men of the Philistines. They agreed to give them water in exchange for the Ark of the Covenant. And so the men of Israel take the ark out to them, give it to the Philistines, and let them come inside the city and drink. As soon as the men of the Philistines get their fill of water, the men of Israel immediately set fire to the city gates and flee to safety. Once the city is burned, the men of Israel attack the men of the Philistines, defeating them and chasing them all the way to As. Yet somewhere along the way, the Philistines lost the ark. It is not recovered for many years, if ever. Where it is, who has it, and what has become of it, are all questions without answers. For the Bible is silent on the matter. All we know is that it has vanished, and the consequences of its vanishing are yet to be seen. What has become of the Ark of the Covenant, and how will God's people fare without it? Before we leave for today, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, do not forget to check out the new channel, and join us every week for live streams and Q&As. Until next time, walk good. Part 4. It is the year 1000 BC. The Ark of the Covenant has finally arrived in Jerusalem. After many months of travel, after many battles and defeats of enemies, King David is now here with his men, and they've brought the Ark with them. They're going to bring it up to the city, but not just bring it up to the city. No, they are going to bring it to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. They're going to bring it into his house, leave it there for 3 days, and then take it up to the temple. Why? Well, because it says in the law of Moses that you cannot bring the ark of the Lord into the city with rejoicing or with the sound of trumpets or any kind of music. You are not allowed to do that. The ark of the Lord, his presence among the children of Israel, was something that was to be treated with reverence and solemnity. So we're going to imagine what this might have looked like. We're going to imagine what it might have sounded like. And if you can, picture yourself there on the streets of Jerusalem, the capital city. This is probably the most important event since the Exodus. And so people are here lining the streets. And the ark arrives, and it is being carried by ropes. Being carried by priests, Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abisai, the brother of the captain of the host. They are the ones who are carrying the ark. And David himself is there with the congregation, but he's not allowed to touch it. It says in the law of Moses that only the Levites, the sons of Levi, Aaron, and that's what these two guys are. They are descendants of Aaron. Only they are allowed to carry the ark. And so David, the king, the one who desires the ark more than anything else in the world, he can't even lay a hand on it. He goes before it and he dances before it, but he doesn't touch it. Only the Levites could do that. Now, as they arrive, there's this huge crowd gathered here, but they don't make a sound. It's completely silent. There are trumpets, there are harps, there are lutes, there are all kinds of instruments of music, and they're setting them up along the way, but they're not allowed to be played. It says that it would be sinful to play music in the presence of the Lord. When the ark arrives at the threshing floor of Nak, that's where they're going to leave it. They're going to set it up there under a tent that they have made especially for it, and from there, they will rest for 3 days while they go and finish preparing things in the city. Now, when it comes to David, when he sees this great moment, the moment that he's been waiting for his entire life, I believe that he wanted to do something great, something spectacular, something that would show God how much he loved God and how much he desired to worship God. But the law said, no, you cannot do that. And so what do we see? We see David showing restraint. He shows reverence. He shows obedience to God. And David leads the way with reverence and solemnity, not with pomp and circumstance. That's really important for us to see. It's easy for us to get caught up in our own ideas of how great God is, how great our worship is. But we need to remember that we need to treat the presence of God with reverence and solemnity. When they arrive at the threshing floor, there's a man whose name is Ornan, the Jebusite. He's there with his family, and he's also dancing. But he's dancing because he doesn't understand what's going on. In his mind, this is just some random guy showing up with his men and dancing before God. So he has no idea what's going on. And David tells him, listen, hey, I want to buy this threshing floor from you. I want to buy it from you for 600 shekels of gold. Now, we don't know what Ornan thought about that, but I imagine he probably didn't think it was worth that much. But David bought it, and it became the place where the ark was kept. Now, they are going to keep it there for 3 days, and we're told that the Lord was very pleased when the Ark of the Covenant, his ark, came to Jerusalem, because the city had been made ready. Sometimes we read these stories and we think, well, this is just history. Okay, let me read it. Let me get through this so I can get to the next story. But listen, the reason that we love stories, movies, TV shows, books, whatever, is because we love seeing a story come together. We love seeing the plot unfold. And if you think about it, this is the main plot of Scripture. God made a promise to David, a promise to his offspring, that there would always be a descendant of his line sitting on the throne of Israel. That was promise number 1. Promise number 2, God promised that the Messiah would come from David's line, the Messiah who would sit on the throne of David. And here's the thing, right? Here's David. He's looking at the ark, which represents God's presence, which represents God's power, which represents the covenant that God has made with Israel. And David must have been thinking in his heart, God, is it really going to be me? Is it really going to be my offspring? Is it really going to be someone from my line that is going to be the Messiah? God, please confirm it. Please make it known. This is why David danced. Not because he was excited that the ark had arrived, though I'm sure he was, but he did something that was uncharacteristic of him. Something that showed his heart, something that showed his desire, something that showed his faith, and he danced before the Lord. Now, It's interesting that he dances before the Lord. But then the ark is moved into a tent because David realizes, okay, I'm not worthy of having God's presence in my house, in my palace. I am not worthy of that. And so he puts the ark in a tent outside of the city. The ark is now here in Jerusalem, but it is still in a tent. It's not yet in the temple. Solomon's temple is going to be built, but it's not yet built. And so for now, the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's presence, the symbol of God's power, the symbol of God's love, is here in Jerusalem. It's here in a tent outside the city, and it's going to remain there for 70 years. We're going to fast forward a little bit to the first day of the month of Atonement. The Day of Atonement. It is early in the morning. Now, the Day of Atonement was the holiest of the holy days. It was the most sacred day on the Jewish calendar. On this day, the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies. He would sprinkle blood on the mercy seat. He would put his hands on the head of a goat and confess the sins of the people. He would sacrifice bulls and goats. And it was the one day of the year where the people could have their sins forgiven, could be cleansed from their sin, could be restored to God. And so imagine the silence that fell over Jerusalem on that day. Imagine how everyone was holding their breath as the high priest walked into the Holy of Holies, the one place where you were not allowed to speak. You weren't allowed to make a sound. Wasn't the temple, wasn't the court of the priests, wasn't the court of the Israelites. It was inside of that room, behind that veil, where the presence of God was confessed, where the presence of God was acknowledged, where the presence of God was worshipped, and where the presence of God was glorified. Now, we don't know exactly how that day went. We don't know what happened, what the high priest did, what he confessed, what he sprinkled. But we do know that in the Holy of Holies, in the presence of God, there was a quiet that spoke volumes. The years leading up to the destruction of the first temple were marked by social unrest, political upheaval, and economic decline. The northern kingdom of Israel was ravaged by famine, civil war, and foreign invasion. It is against this backdrop that the prophet Jeremiah delivers a series of oracles foretelling the imminent destruction of Jerusalem. In today's episode, we're going to look at 3 possible ways that these oracles might have come about, including the possibility that they were fabricated in the aftermath of the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem. We left off last time with the Babylonians laying siege to Jerusalem in 587 BC after a brutal 2-year siege. The city falls, and the temple is destroyed. Jeremiah has already predicted all this, and he sticks around Jerusalem as the city is pillaged and burned. But it seems he doesn't stick around for long after that, because soon enough he is telling people not to live in Judah anymore, but rather to go to Egypt. And many people do. They listen to his advice, and they head to the land of the pharaohs in search of safety. Jeremiah stays behind again, but this time he's joined by a small group of loyalists who refuse to leave. They include the temple guard of Ebed-melech, King Zedekiah's son, Seraiah, and most importantly, 2 priests, Pashur and Malkiel. The 2 priests have been particularly zealous in their support of Jeremiah and his mission. They are so enthusiastic, in fact, that they end up giving him some very valuable information. Pashur tells Jeremiah about a chamber where the tribe of Judah kept their most sacred objects, including the bronze pillars, Yak and Boaz, which stood on either side of the altar in the temple court. These pillars had been there since Solomon dedicated the temple over 400 years earlier, and they symbolized the presence of God in the place. One of the pillars was inscribed with the words, "He will smite the earth with the rod of his mouth and slay the wicked with the breath of his lips." The other said, "Under his windows are the beginnings of wisdom and understanding." This tradition goes all the way back to the days of King David, when the Jebusites still occupied the citadel of Zion. David vowed that one day he would destroy them and replace their fortress with something great. He said, "Whoever destroys the Jebusites, I will give them a reward from the house of Eliab, from the threshing floor of Arona," the Jebusite. Later, when Solomon built the temple, he put the pillars Yakin and Boaz on either side of the entrance to the court. So the priests told Jeremiah where to find these pillars if the Babylonians hadn't looted them yet. But it seems like the priests are mistaken, because Jeremiah can't find the pillars anywhere. All he finds is a set of stone columns covered in writing. He also discovers some empty sockets in the wall where the pillars likely stood. All these things vanish into silence. This has led to speculation that perhaps the book of Jeremiah was written sometime after the destruction of the temple. If the pillars had indeed been taken by the Babylonians, Then Jeremiah should have found empty sockets in the wall, just like he did. Adityonaji, we don't hear anything about the pillars after the destruction of the temple, even though we know that the Babylonians were very proud of their spoils from Jerusalem. If they had taken the pillars, then surely they would have bragged about it, but they didn't. So this would seem to indicate that the book of Jeremiah was written after the temple was destroyed, and that it was written by someone who knew exactly what the temple looked like. This theory is bolstered by the fact that we don't hear any details about the temple furnishings until after the exile. Before the exile, the writers of the books of Kings and Chronicles focus primarily on the history of the kings and their lineages, as well as the religious reforms enacted by various kings. Once the temple was destroyed and the nation was in exile, however, the religious system became the primary concern of the people. The loss of the temple cult was keenly felt by the people of Judah, and so it is not surprising that later Judean writers would become very interested in the details of the former temple. Another piece of evidence that the book of Jeremiah was written sometime after the destruction of the temple is the fact that it contains traditions not found elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible. For example, in Jeremiah 31, 31-34, we hear that Yahweh says, "Behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not like the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt. My covenant which they broke, although I was a husband to them, says Yahweh. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After that time, says Yahweh, I will put my law within them and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And I will require them no more, each man from his brother, and I will not require of them their blood offerings or their sacrifices which they used to offer to me in the days of their youth, says Yahweh. For thus says the Lord of hosts, if I had not established day and night as the fixed order of heaven and as the revolving earth, then shall your offspring, and the offspring of your offspring, even to the age of ages, not cease to come before me, says Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh, if I had not made the day and night, the fixed order of heaven and the earth, the fixed order of the world, then your offspring would have found the remnant of these very things, the increase of them, and the offspring of the wicked would have been cut off. The idea of a new covenant is also found in Ezekiel 37:24-28, and it's fully realized in the New Testament with the coming of Jesus Christ. This tradition wasn't fabricated by Jeremiah. Rather, it was added to his book later by someone else. Another tradition, not found elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible, is Jeremiah's prophecy about a great famine that would come upon Judah in the latter days. In chapters 14 and 15, we hear about how bad things are going to get during the time of the exile. There will be no rain, and the land will be desolate and barren. People will die of thirst, and the corpses will go unburied. Those who survive will wish they had died. As hard as things are right now, it's nothing compared to what's coming. Even a stump or a stone in the land of Judah will provoke the people to curse the day on which they were born. Jeremiah says that the only hope for the people is to humble themselves and turn back to God. But once things get bad enough, they won't even want to live anymore. Everything will be completely ruined. But wait, didn't Jeremiah predict all this too? Isn't this just more proof that he wrote this book while the Babylonians were besieging Jerusalem? Well, hold on. This may seem to be a problem for the theory that someone else wrote this book after the temple was destroyed, but it's actually a major strength of the theory. You see, the first 5 chapters of the book of Jeremiah contain prophecies that are strikingly similar to those found in the book of Deuteronomy. That's why scholars refer to the book of Jeremiah as the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy, of course, is traditionally attributed to Moses. But we know that Moses died over 1,000 years before Jeremiah was active. So how could Jeremiah have written a book that was so similar to Deuteronomy? Simple. He didn't. Someone else wrote it. Now, there is no consensus among scholars about who wrote the Deuterojeremiah material. Some think it was Jeremiah himself. But that doesn't make any sense. Surely if Jeremiah was such a prolific writer, we would have found more of his writings. Others think it was a student of Jeremiah. Still others think it was a member of the circle of Jeremiah. But ultimately, we just don't know. Whoever wrote it before the destruction of the temple, because we hear about the temple and God as presence in the temple. But he wrote it in a style so similar to Deuteronomy that it must have been written sometime very close to the time that Deuteronomy was written. Now, if this person was part of Jeremiah's circle and he wrote during the time of Jeremiah's ministry, then that would push back the composition of the book of Jeremiah to the late 7th century, closer to the time of the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem. There's a lot more to this story, but that's all we have time for today. Join us next time to hear the rest of the episode. Are you coming with me? Are you coming with me to the roof tonight? There is something I want to show you. Something about the shape of the month, the tilt of the clouds, the way the shadows fall. It all comes together tonight, and once you see it, you will understand. You'll understand so much better who we are, where we are, and why. I am from Ethiopia, and this is part 6 of my story. It is late afternoon now. The sun is beginning to set over the mountains in the west, and soon the sky will turn the color of old gold. Later, after sunset, the mountains will be a deep indigo in the gathering dark. You know that I love my home. I love the streets of Addis Ababa, where I grew up. I love the mountains where I hike, the lakes where I swim, the ancient churches where I pray. But there is one place that holds a special place in my heart, and that is here on the roof at night. When I was young, I would come up here with my grandfather. He was very old then, and he would tell me stories about the stars and the moon and the ancient kingdom of Oxum. He told me how Oxum was founded by the Queen of Sheba after she returned from her journey to Jerusalem, how she built a great city here on the edge of the world, where the mountains touched the sky and the rivers of paradise flowed down into the sea. And he would tell me about I, the son of Solomon, and the Queen of Sheba, who came to Aksum with 70 Jewish elders and priests and established the Ark of the Covenant here in the Church of St. Mary of Zion. He told me about the great tablet that contains the very words of God, given by Moses on Mount Sinai. He told me about the secret guardians of the Ark, the flame-crested leopards, whose duty it is to protect the tabia with their lives. He told me about the Timcat processions, the amazing celebrations when the Ark is taken out of the church and paraded through the streets of Aksum. The faithful follow behind, beating drums and chanting, and the Ark is carried on a golden throne under a canopy of silk and velvet. And the most important thing, he told me, is that at night, when the procession returns to the church, the faithful can touch the Ark and become purified, made whole and holy again. And as I listened to these stories, I felt a deep sense of pride and joy. I felt connected to something bigger than myself, to the ancient past and the eternal present of my people. Now I am older, and each year I return to this place to remember my grandfather and the stories he told me. I look up at the stars and try to imagine what it must have been like for him when he was young. What did he see in the night sky? What did he hear in the wind and the trees? What did he feel in his heart when he walked the streets of Oxford? It is hard to say, but I think he felt the same things I feel when I am here. A sense of peace and tranquility, a feeling of being at home in the universe, a connection to the rhythms of the earth and the pulse of the cosmos. Many times I have sat here and wondered what my life would be like if I had stayed in Ethiopia. Would I have become a monk and lived my life in prayer and contemplation? Would I have married and had children and lived a simple life as a farmer or a craftsman? Would I have traveled to far-off lands and seen the world? I don't know. All I know is that I would have been happy, because here in Ethiopia, happiness is a way of life. We may have our problems and our troubles, just like everyone else, but we know how to find joy in the midst of sorrow, beauty in the midst of struggle, hope in the midst of despair. And this is what I want to share with you tonight. The joy and beauty and hope of Ethiopia. I want to show you the roof where I sit and dream beneath the stars. I want to take you on a journey through the streets of Addis Ababa, the bustling capital city where I was born and raised. I want to introduce you to the people I love, the friends and family who make my life so rich and meaningful. And I want to tell you about the things I believe in, the traditions and customs that give my life purpose and direction. So let us go for a walk together through the city. Let us explore the markets and the shops, the cafes and the parks. Let us listen to the music and the laughter, the chatter and the drums. Let us taste the food, the injera and the wat, the kitfo and the buna. Let us breathe in the incense and the frankincense, the myrrh and the coffee. Let us feel the warmth of the sun on our skin, the coolness of the shade on our bodies, the softness of the grass beneath our feet. Let us see the ancient churches with their beautiful paintings and carvings, the castles and palaces, the monasteries, and convents. Let us visit the graves of our ancestors and pay our respects to them. Let us remember the heroes and heroines of our past who fought for our freedom and independence, our sovereignty and dignity. Let us honor the leaders and intellectuals who guided our nation to progress and development, our scientists and artists, our doctors and teachers, our soldiers and farmers. Let us celebrate the youth and children who are the future of our country, the ones who will carry our legacy forward to new heights of glory and greatness. And when the time comes, let us go up to the roof together and watch the stars come out one by one. Let us marvel at the beauty of the Milky Way, the path of the righteous, the light of salvation. Let us contemplate the mystery of the universe, the source of all life and knowledge, the father of all humanity. O my Ethiopia, land of my birth, land of my soul, I love you with all my heart. I love your mountains and valleys, your rivers and lakes, your forests and deserts. I love your people and culture, your history and heritage, your faith and freedom. I love everything about you, because you are everything to me. You are the reason for my being, the purpose of my life, the source of my inspiration, the object of my devotion. Without you, I am lost. With you, I am home. Oh, my Ethiopia. I am proud to be Ethiopian. I am proud of my skin color, my hair, texture, my facial features, my body language, my way of thinking, my way of feeling, my way of being. I am proud of my language, my literature, my music, my dance, my art, my architecture. I am proud of my food, my clothing, my customs, my traditions, my religion. I am proud of my past, my present, my future, my destiny. Oh, my Ethiopia, I am grateful to be Ethiopian. I am grateful for the gift of life that you have given me. I am grateful for the opportunity to live in this beautiful country, to breathe in its fresh air, to drink from its pure waters, to walk on its fertile soil, to see with my own eyes its stunning landscapes, to hear with my own ears its melodious birds, to feel with my own hands its warm sunshine, to taste with my own mouth its delicious fruits, to smell with my own nose its fragrant flowers, to think with my own mind its wise teachings, to speak with my own tongue its ancient words, to love with my own heart its noble people, to serve with my own soul its sacred causes, to dream with my own spirit its glorious visions. Oh, my Ethiopia. I am loyal to Ethiopia. I am loyal to the truth of my identity, to the dignity of my humanity, to the justice of my faith, to the beauty of my culture, to the strength of my unity, to the hope of my future. Oh, my Ethiopia. I am yours forever. I am yours in life, in death, in heaven, on earth, in time, in eternity. You are my everything. I am your child, your servant, your soldier, your messenger, your witness, your voice. I am everything for you because you are everything to me. This is part 6 of my story. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also subscribe to my channel to get notified when I upload new videos. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and stay kind. And remember, you matter. This world is because of you. Hey, everyone. I'm here, and welcome to part 7. Where did Jesus go after his crucifixion? We know what most people believe. They think that Joseph of Arimathea took Jesus' body down from the cross, wrapped it in linen cloth and spices, laid him in a tomb that was carved out of stone, rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb, and then left. And 3 days later, Jesus rose again. But is that all there is to the story? Are we sure that Joseph was the only one who was involved in preparing Jesus' body for burial? Could there have been others? Did Mary Magdalene and the other disciples play any role at all in the burial of their Lord and Savior? What if there were multiple people who prepared Jesus' body? What if there were multiple tombs where he was laid to rest? What if Jesus didn't rise from the same tomb that he was buried in? These are the questions that we will be trying to answer today as we look at some alternative theories regarding the burial place of Jesus. Before we get started, I just want to say that I am not trying to diminish the importance of Jesus' resurrection in any way by bringing up these alternative ideas. In fact, I believe that these alternative ideas actually add to our understanding of Jesus' resurrection and the importance of this event in human history. The idea that Jesus could have been buried in more than one place, or that other people could have been involved in preparing his body for burial, suggests the possibility that there could have been more witnesses to his death and resurrection than we previously thought. And if that is true, then the significance of this event becomes even greater. Let us start by looking at the claim made by some that Jesus was buried in a desert cave. This claim is based on a passage in the Gospel of Matthew, which says that after Joseph had closed the tomb, he went away. And behold, an earthquake occurred, and an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and rolled back the stone and sat on it. Then he was taken by a sudden fear. So he fell backwards and collapsed at the entrance of the tomb. Then the angel said to the women who had come to anoint Jesus' body, "He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where the Lord lay." This passage seems to indicate that the tomb was located outside of the city of Jerusalem, in a place called the Garden of Joseph of Arimathea. It's possible that this garden was near a cave that was used as a tomb, and if so, that would mean that Jesus' body was not placed in a traditional tomb made of stone, but rather in a cave that was already there. Some have suggested that Jesus was buried on Mount Nebo, which is located across from Jericho. According to tradition, Moses ascended this mountain after being told by God that he would not enter the promised land. And from the top of the mountain, he was able to see the land that God had given to the Israelites. It is possible that Jesus was crucified on Mount Nebo, and that his body was then taken down and buried in a cave on the mountain. This tradition claims that Jesus' body was then discovered by two shepherds who were tending their flocks nearby. They were so amazed by what they saw that they fled and hid themselves. As a result, there were no witnesses to Jesus' burial on Mount Nebo. However, the fact that there were shepherds in the area at the time of Jesus' crucifixion makes it seem plausible that they could have witnessed his burial as well. Another intriguing possibility is that Jesus was buried on the island of Elephantine in the middle of the Nile River. According to this tradition, Jesus' body was taken to Elephantine Island after his crucifixion by members of the Essenes, who were a Jewish sect that lived in the area. They believed that Jesus was the Messiah and they wanted to keep his body safe from the Roman authorities. The Essenes built a small chapel over the tomb where Jesus was laid to rest, and they guarded it day and night. Unfortunately, there is very little historical evidence to support this claim. The only evidence we have is a single manuscript that was discovered in the Cairo Geniza, which is a collection of ancient Jewish texts that were found in a synagogue in Egypt. The manuscript is a letter written by a member of the Isan community on Elephantine Island to a Jewish leader in Jerusalem asking for permission to bury Jesus' body on the island. However, this letter was written many years after Jesus' death, and there is no way to know whether or not permission was granted. Finally, let's consider the possibility that Jesus was buried on the South Arabian route. This theory is based on the idea that Jesus' body was not taken to Jerusalem after his crucifixion, but rather that he was buried along the road between Nazareth and Jerusalem. There are a few different places along this road where Jesus could have been buried, and each location has its own unique set of traditions and legends. For example, some believe that Jesus was buried near the village of Kafr-Kum, where there is a small church that stands over his supposed tomb. Others believe that Jesus was buried in a place called the Garden Tomb, which is located near the modern-day city of Jerusalem. The Garden Tomb theory is particularly interesting because it was popularized in the early 20th century by a man named Gordon F. Dallimore, who claimed to have discovered Jesus' burial place while searching for his own father's grave. However, most scholars have dismissed this claim as a modern fabrication. These are just a few of the different places where Jesus may have been buried. While none of these alternative theories can be proven with absolute certainty, they do provide us with a glimpse into the different ways that people have interpreted the biblical account of Jesus' death and resurrection. Some of these theories are more plausible than others, but all of them offer an interesting perspective on this pivotal event in Christian history. And let us not forget the medieval whispers that speak of the Knights Templar guarding the burial site of Jesus Christ himself. They say that when the order was disbanded in 1818, its last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, revealed the location of the Holy Sepulchre to a single squire before his execution. The squire, sworn to secrecy until death, ensured the secret remained hidden for centuries. Now, rumors persist of a secret burial chamber beneath the Temple Mount, accessible only through a network of tunnels known as the Way of the Skull. They say that Jesus' bones rest here, hidden from the world, protected by the very order that failed to save him. Now, as with the other theories we've explored today, there's no concrete evidence to support the claim that Jesus was buried here. Yet the possibility remains an intriguing one. A secret burial chamber beneath the bustling streets of Jerusalem. A silent testament to the life and death of the world's most influential teacher. Could there be more to this medieval legend than mere myth? Is there truth hidden beneath the surface? Could the secrets of the Knights Templar lead us to the very heart of Christ as final resting place? Thank you for watching. It's 4 a.m. and you're still awake. What are you doing? You have to get up in 6 hours for work or school. Do you ever wonder if you could be a world-class archaeologist, uncovering ancient mysteries right alongside your day job? Well, of course you do. It's me, and this is my channel. It's time for part 8 of our archaeological proof series. This week we're going to look at what archaeologists actually seek when they're excavating a site, what kind of evidence they're looking for, and why the big aha. Proof is so elusive. We'll also talk about the difficulties of working in places like the desert or among ruins, and we'll explore some ways that textual criticism helps us fill in the blanks where physical evidence falls short. But first, it's time for a quick reminder of what we've talked about so far in this series. Remember that archaeology is the study of the human past through physical remains. So the first thing we need is physical remains from the past. That can be things like buildings, pottery, tools, or garbage. Archaeology is also the study of patterns, so we want to find more than just 1 or 2 isolated pieces of evidence, because those can mean pretty much anything. So if we're trying to answer a specific question, we want to find multiple pieces of evidence that fit together like a pattern or a constellation. For example, if we want to know whether people ate meat in ancient Israel around the time of Jesus, we don't want to just find a single animal bone or a few butchering tools. Those could have been brought to the site by someone who was visiting, or even by an animal that scavenged onto the site. Instead, we would want to find dozens or hundreds of butchered animal bones, maybe accompanied by tools used for butchery, animal dung, storage areas filled with dried meat and other kinds of evidence. If we find all that stuff together in one place and nowhere else, then we can start to say something really interesting might be going on here. Maybe there was a community of people who lived here who regularly ate meat. When scholars piece together these constellations of evidence, they often use something called the archaeological method. This is simply a way of weighing all the available evidence in an attempt to reach a conclusion. Usually it looks something like this. Observation leads to a hypothesis, which leads to a prediction, which leads to further observation, and so on. For example, let us say we were standing in an excavation and we noticed lots of smashed and burnt animal bones. We might wonder whether people smashed and burnt these bones on purpose as part of a ritual, which would be an important discovery for understanding the culture of the people who lived here. To test this hypothesis, we would weigh the evidence. Did other cultures in the region smash and burn animal bones in their rituals? Did this culture produce any written texts mentioning such rituals? Are there any other artifacts here that point to ritual activity? And so on. The more evidence we find for the hypothesis, the stronger our confidence in it becomes. Now, it's important to remember that archaeology isn't an exact science. We never have a 100% confidence in our conclusions. At best, we can only say that one explanation seems more likely than others, given the available evidence. In other words, it's perfectly possible that the smashed animal bones were indeed part of a ritual. But there may be other explanations. Maybe the people who lived here kept their trash in this area and smashed the bones to make them take up less space. But the archaeological method still helps us sift through the evidence and arrive at a plausible explanation for what might have happened. So now that we've covered the basic principles of archaeology, let's see how they play out in practice. Here are 4 common challenges archaeologists face when trying to find evidence, and why those challenges sometimes make it difficult to draw firm conclusions. First, sometimes archaeologists are working in the desert. Deserts are hot, dry and windy. They don't have many trees, which means there aren't many wooden buildings or furniture, and almost nothing grows there, so there isn't much plant matter. As a result, many desert settlements leave behind very little physical evidence. Often the main things we find are a few stone walls and scattered pottery. So, if we wanted to know, say, whether people in a particular desert city ate meat, we would probably have a hard time finding the answer there. We would have to look for traces of meat in other places like animal bones preserved in nearby caves, or dung in latrines, in urban centers, or preserved animal remains in garbage dumps, outside city walls, or stable remains. Perhaps near a sukkah, or storehouses. Perhaps near a palace. Second, sometimes archaeologists are working at a ruin. Many ancient structures have been occupied and reoccupied over the centuries. When scholars call a site a ruin, it often means that several layers of occupation are present. Let us imagine we are standing in the courtyard of a house that has been occupied for 2,000 years. Archaeologists might find the remains of a hut from the early Iron Age, a storage room from the Second Temple period, a cistern from the Muslim period, a fountain from Crusader times, and a house from Ottoman rule. All of these different occupations will leave behind different artifacts, pottery, tools, coins, animal bones, and other kinds of evidence will change from layer to layer. But if the excavators aren't careful, they could end up mixing all these different layers together. Imagine an archaeologist excavating this site, and you find a glass bottle in the same layer as an Iron Age jar. What does this tell you? Almost nothing unless you know exactly which room or area of the site the bottle came from. This is called association. It's important to understand the spatial relationships between artifacts. Just because you found two things in the same hole doesn't mean they're connected. Sometimes it just means they come from different periods and got mixed together. This is why archaeologists spend so much time carefully recording the precise location of every artifact they find, down to the tiniest scraps of pottery. The third challenge we'll mention is that sometimes the places archaeologists most want to visit are the ones they on to get to. For a biblical archaeologist, that might mean a site inside the Temple Mount in Jerusalem or the Western Wall tunnels beneath it. These sites are holy to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike, and religious authorities restrict who can enter them and what they can do once they get there. And of course, there are many other examples. Archaeologists can't always dig wherever they want, or even see what they've already discovered. Fourth, sometimes evidence is destroyed before anyone ever finds it. Ancient sites are often looted or destroyed by modern development or natural disasters like earthquakes, flooding, and volcanic eruptions. Even at undisturbed sites, organic materials like wood and leather decompose over time. So unless something like a building collapses and buries another building, many materials just disappear after only a few decades. This is why it can be so valuable to find a site that has been buried by an earthquake or a volcano, since these natural disasters can preserve entire cities in a single instant. And it's why looters can sometimes find treasures that archaeologists dream of, like wooden furniture in a tomb. The destruction that archaeologists dread most is erosion. Rain, wind, and even foot traffic can gradually wash away or damage fragile artifacts. This is why archaeologists try to keep their own shoes on when they're re-excavating, and why they ask visitors to stay on marked paths. They even use giant brushes to remove dirt from delicate surfaces. So what does all this mean for our quest to find proof of Jesus in the archaeological record? So far, we haven't found any direct evidence of Jesus himself, but we have found plenty of evidence that helps us understand the world he knew. We've found towns and villages, palaces and temples, roads and aqueducts, coins and inscriptions. In fact, we've learned so much about the world of Jesus that scholars can model what it looked like in 3D, giving us a virtual tour of ancient Jerusalem or Nazareth. These models are based on thousands of tiny details recorded by archaeologists and historians. And while they can't show us Jesus, they can show us what the world looked like when he was alive. If we want to find proof of Jesus, we'll probably have to keep looking. But the archaeological record can help us better understand the world he knew. And that makes the search all the more fascinating. Thanks for watching. Sign up for our email list and join us next week for part 9 of our archaeological proof series, where we'll talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Ark was a throne. It was also a footstool. The Lord of Hosts wanted it to be both. He wanted to dwell in the midst of his people. So he made a place where they could carry him, sustain him, and through that very act, become like him. It's me. This is the story. Today we are continuing our series called Holy Symbols, because symbols matter. They shape the way we see the world, the way we think about God, the way we worship him. And the Ark of the Covenant is one of the most important symbols in all of Scripture. This series has been a bit of a whirlwind tour through the Old Testament. We started with the garden, then moved on to the tree, then on to the blood moon, then to the high places, the altar, the day star, the staff of Aaron, the tabernacle, and the feast. Each of these have had deep meaning for Israel and for us today, but none have carried with them more weight than the ark. In the Torah, the ark is presented in detail in Exodus chapters 20 through 25, verses 10 through 30, as well as in Exodus 37 and 40. And from there, we see it appearing throughout the rest of the Old Testament, all the way from the days of Joshua to the reign of the kings and beyond. It's mentioned over 100 times in Scripture. So what exactly was this ark? How was it made? What was it used for? And why should we care about it? Let's break it down. First, the ark was a throne. It was also a footstool. When Moses came down Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, he was carrying the stone tablets in his hands. But when the Israelites panicked at the sight of God's glory, he placed the tablets on top of the ark. In Exodus 25 to 22, we read, "And there I will meet with you, and from within the mercy seat speak with you." So God didn't just want the ark to be a container for the law. He wanted to be present in the ark. He wanted it to be his dwelling place, his ombasi. And this shows us something about God's character. He desires relationship. He desires to be close to his people. And so the ark was a way of achieving that. It's like a little house that he would step into and walk among his people. Second, the ark was a covenant. God made a covenant with Abraham that if Abraham could father a multitude of nations through him, then the land that flowed with milk and honey would become their possession. Then later, God reiterated that promise to Moses. He said, "I have established my covenant with day and night in the fixed order of heaven and earth. For this is the one whom I will bring into the land that you are entering, who shall possess it, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for I will restore their fortunes and have mercy on them." So the ark reminded Israel of God's faithfulness. It was tangible proof that God was going to do what he said he would do. It was like a big sign that said, God keeps his promises. Third, the ark was power. The ark was a source of strength and spiritual power. When the Israelites were defeated by the Canaanites at the hands of the Amalekites, we read that Moses lifted up his hands while Aaron and Hur held up his arms, one on each side. And so Moses was able to defeat the enemy. And the same was true of the ark. When the ark of the Lord was present, victory followed. But there was a danger to the ark. There were consequences to touching it or taking it into battle. God was powerful, and the ark represented that power. And those who came too close often found themselves in peril. Fourth, the ark was law. The ark contained the 10 Commandments, the foundational laws by which God's people were to live. And so whenever they looked at the ark, they were reminded of God's expectations. They were to keep his commands and walk in his ways. We read in Deuteronomy 4:13, "And when you come into the land which the Lord your God has given you, and you possess it and dwell in it, and you see that there are many nations around you that are greater than you both, in old and new families you must not be led away to follow them." In other words, don't copy the nations around you. Follow God's laws instead. And they could look at the ark and remember, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not covet. Honor your father and mother, and do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Fifth, the ark was mercy. Even though the ark represented God's holiness and his righteousness, it also represented his mercy. That's because of what was inside of it. The stone tablets of the law were not just the 10 Commandments. They were also the 613 commandments of the Torah. And 365 of those commandments were negative, meaning they told the people what not to do. In other words, out of the 613 commandments, there were more laws about what not to do than there were about what they should do. And that's why Jesus could say in Matthew 23:5, "You have paid a tenth of mint, dill, and cumin, and have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness." It was necessary to do these things while not neglecting those blind guides who filter out a gnat and swallow a camel. The Ark of the Covenant was a picture of God's mercy. And all of this brings us back to the original question. Why should we care? Why should we care about the Ark? Well, because the Ark matters. It matters because God matters. It matters because he's worthy to be praised. And here's 4 reasons why God deserves praise. 1. Because he is eternal. He has always existed and always will exist. He doesn't need anything. He lacks nothing. He is complete and sufficient in himself, and yet he chose to enter into relationship with man. Second, because he is completely holy and righteous, and yet he desires to draw near to sinners like you and me. Third, because he is good. He doesn't delight in punishment. He hates sin, but he loves sinners, and he made a way for us to be forgiven. Fourth, because he is powerful, and no one is more powerful than God. And yet he chose to use simple things like a wooden chest to display his glory. The Ark had a profound impact on everything. It influenced the art, the music, the literature, the poetry, the painting, the sculpture, the very architecture of ancient Israel. You can see it in the Psalms. You can see it in the prophets. You can see it in the Gospels. Jesus knew the scriptures. He knew the tradition, and he knew the significance of the ark. When the centurion came to Jesus and asked him to heal his servant, he said, "I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed." Jesus then replied, "Truly I say to you, I have not found such great faith. No, not in Israel." And so when Jesus entered the temple, he went straight to the holy place. He looked at the ark, and he said, "Truly, I say to you, this temple will be left forsaken, and the days are coming when Jerusalem will not be called a city anymore. And when the Lord leaves the temple, he is leaving the place where he once walked and dwelt in that. Will never happen again until the new Jerusalem comes down from heaven and becomes the dwelling place of God among the nations." The Ark of the Covenant was a symbol of God's presence. It pointed to a time when God would dwell among his people. That day has come. It's here. Jesus Christ is the new Ark of the Covenant. He is God's presence among men, and he will never leave us nor forsake us. Which brings us to the greatest symbol of all, the cross. Next week, we're going to dive into the cross and explore what it means for us today. So join us next time. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification so you get notified every time we release a new video. We would also love it if you would take 2 minutes to give us some feedback. We've got some questions for you about how you're redoing and how we can serve you better. So thanks for watching. God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to the final part of this multi-part series. And so we come to the end of our adventure. After all these weeks of searching, all these months, really, all these years, we have found it. We have found the lost city of the monkey god, the legendary city of gold. And now we face one last challenge, one last great quest, how to leave. For even in our triumph, even in our victory, there is danger. The jungle is unforgiving. It is hungry, and it wants what is ours to keep. For one thing, we have disturbed the slumber of the ancients. Their spirits are awake now, and though they mean us no harm, they do not wish for us to disturb their eternal rest any more than is necessary. So the question is, what do we do now? What do we do with this place? With this treasure, there is also another pressing matter, for time is short. The river is rising. Soon the rains will come, and if we are still here when the floods arrive, then we may find ourselves swept away, lost in the churning brown waters, torn from the familiar banks of the river, tumbled into the dark green heart of the untamed wild. And who knows where we'd wash ashore, or whether we would live to tell the tale. We have come so far. We have endured so much. Do we turn back now? Do we run from what we have found? Our hands are blistered. Our faces scratched and scarred. Our bodies bitten and bleeding. We are weary and we hurt, but still we must push on. For however great the cost, the burden of what we bear within us, the knowledge that the world will never be the same again, that is a heavier price yet. This city, this place, it is a heavy thing to carry. We cannot keep it. We cannot take it with us. Neither can we allow others to despoil it, to tear it down and steal its riches. But then what are we to do? There is only one answer, only one choice. We must honor this place, tend it, protect it, make sure it is cared for, cherished, revered. But we are but three. How can we guard this city? 3 pairs of eyes against the darkness creeping at the edges of the world. 3 hands to hold back the tide that threatens to engulf it all. For we know not all men are noble, not all hearts are pure. Greed is a powerful master, and some would kill and die to possess the treasures of the monkey god. So it falls to us to be the bulwarks against the coming storm, to stand fast as the lightning falls and thunder roars. We are but 3, yet we have come so far. Surely something can be done. Something must be done. We have seen the wonders of this place. We have heard the whispers on the wind, felt the spirits of the forest brush against our skin, smelled the incense of ancient prayers carried on the backs of moths. We have stared into the abyss and lived to tell the tale. If it is to be our task to guard this secret, then by the gods, we shall do it well. Or perhaps there is another way. Perhaps there is someone else who could help us. Someone who understands these matters better than we. Someone whose calling in life is to safeguard places such as these. Someone like Indiana Jones. He has faced worse odds than ours, braved greater perils, battled men who would plunder and destroy just for the sake of it. He has risked his life to preserve history, to protect the innocent. Surely he would understand. Surely he would lend a hand. But where does one find a man like that when one needs him most? Well, perhaps it is as simple as making a wish upon a falling star, sending a prayer out into the endless black velvet night sky, hoping and praying it finds its way to him, that he hears our call. Or perhaps we should go to him, seek him out in his own domain, track him down through the winding tunnels of the past. If anyone can help us, if anyone can understand, uneasy say. But how do we reach him? Where is he now? What is he doing? Is he still out there fighting the good fight, protecting the world from the forces of darkness? Or has he grown weary, thrown up his hands and gone home to a quiet life of books and study? The decision is a hard one, fraught with peril either way. To stay is to court disaster. To leave is to abandon all we have found. We have walked this path for many moons now, and the road behind us is long and hard to see in the gathering dark. Still, someone must go back. Tend the fires, gather supplies, check the weapons, make sure everything is ready for whatever comes next. It falls to me, then it falls to you. You always knew this might be your destiny, that you would be the last to leave, the last to hold the flame, so to speak. You've packed lightly, traveled with only what you could carry on your back. No extra gear, no backup supplies. You're not sure why you didn't bring more, but you don't need to pack now. Time is short, so you just grab what you need. Water, food, rope, your journal, your pen, your compass, your sword, whatever else catches your eye. The others have done the same. Your boat is already waiting, anchored close ashore, ready to carry you away. But there is one last thing you must do before you leave. You must say goodbye. Thank you. Farewell to the monkey god. To this place, to the dreams and hopes that brought you here in the first place. You must close the circle, tie the bow, complete the quest, end the story that began so long ago. Then you step into the boat, into the darkness, into the unknown. You feel the current tugging at your anchor, pulling it from the riverbed. The line snaps, the oars dip, and you are drifting away from the only life you've ever known, away from everything you've ever loved and lost. But as you round the bend in the river and disappear from view, we hear a whisper on the wind. A single word, a name, a prayer, a plea, Quetzalcoatl, and we know then that the spirit of the monkey god lives on, that his presence lingers still in this place, that his power flows through every leaf and stone and tree, and we are left with the echo of his voice ringing in our ears. The memory of his face burned into our minds, forever changed by what we have seen and heard and felt. For we have come to the end of our adventure, but the journey is never really over, is it? Some mysteries are best left unsolved, some doors are best left unopened, some treasures are best left undisturbed. The jungle is a patient mistress. She waits and she watches, and those who disturb her slumber do so at their peril. For now, the city is safe, hidden away in the emerald heart of the untamed wild, protected by the spirits of the forest and the power of the monkey god. But who's to say what the future may hold? Who's to say what dangers may lie in wait? What evils stir in the shadows? What greed and ambition drives men to do? All we can do is hope for the best and prepare for the worst, knowing that the fate of the world hangs in the balance. And so, the story ends. Or maybe it's just beginning. It's up to you to decide what happens next. What would you do if you found the lost city of the monkey god? What would you take with you? What would you leave behind? And how would you deal with the people when they came looking for treasure? The answers are up to you, because this is your story to tell. Just remember, when you do, to give yourself a very generous helping of credit. Don't sell yourself short. Give yourself the love and attention you deserve, because you are amazing. Amazingly creative, amazingly adventurous, amazingly compassionate. In a world that often feels cold and uncaring, it's easy to forget that you are worthy of love and kindness, that you are deserving of joy and happiness, that you are valuable beyond measure. Remember that you are enough, that you are perfect just the way you are, and that you are capable of achieving anything you set your mind to. Have a good night, and see you next time.